The defense grid on Kareth Outpost failed with a shriek of alarms, and Commander Relas knew they had only minutes before the enemy fleet descended. The sky above the barren moon glowed with the streaks of incoming plasma fire, and every comm channel screamed with overlapping distress calls. The Zorth warlord Karvek had crushed every colony in this sector, leaving none alive, and now Kareth was next. Relas slammed her fist against the console, staring at the casualty reports as her people scattered in panic through the narrow corridors of the outpost. They had no ships, no weapons to match the warlord's fleet. Just a thin hope of the distress beacon they'd sent moments before. "Signal sent," she barked at her aide, a trembling youth named Jiron. "Yes, Commander," he said, voice cracking. "Wide band universal protocol. Anyone who can hear us." Relas felt her stomach twist. Anyone. That meant any mercenary, pirate, or scavenger might come to claim their desperate plea. But doing nothing meant death. She turned to window, watching as the dark shapes of the enemy fleet loomed closer, blocking out the stars. They had minutes, maybe less. "Commander," Jiron said suddenly, eyes widening at the console. We were getting a response. Relas spun toward him. "From who?" His voice faltered. I don't know. It's a designation I've never seen. No galactic registry match. The signal's coming from the edge of the local cluster." Her heart sank. "Unknowns. Likely raiders." "No, Commander, look." Jiron pointed to the tactical screen as new signatures dropped from FDL, sharp and angular ships materializing in perfect formation. They were nothing like the elegant cruisers of galactic fleets. These vessels were darker, brutal in their design, as if built purely for function over beauty. Their hulls bore no ornate crests, only a simple insignia, an unfamiliar blue and white symbol. Relas swallowed hard. "Patch me through?" A cold voice answered, steady and clipped. "This is Captain Mason of the Terran Defense Fleet. You sent a distress call." The alien commander hesitated. Yes, we're under attack. We didn't mean..." "Coordinates received," Mason interrupted. "Stand by. We'll handle it." Relas blinked. That was it. No questions about payment, allegiance, or politics. Just a calm certainty that sent a shiver through her. The Terran ships moved like predators, sleek and fast, spreading into a combat line with unnerving precision. She'd seen many fleets in her life. None carried this kind of silent purpose. There was no grand speech, no posturing, just a quiet, terrifying efficiency. The enemy fleet was minutes away, vast and overwhelming. Yet as she stared at the Terran vessels positioning themselves between Kareth and certain annihilation, Relas felt something she hadn't in weeks. Hope. The Terran fleet hung in perfect formation, dark silhouettes against a star-streaked void. Even without firing a shot, they radiated danger. Every line of their ships designed for war. Relas watched from the outpost command deck as the strangers prepared for battle with a focus that unsettled everyone present. There was no chatter, no wasted motion, only cold precision. "Commander," Jiron whispered, his voice barely audible. "They don't look like diplomats. They look like killers." Relas didn't answer. She couldn't take her eyes off the largest vessel at the center. Its weapons arrays were bristling, massive kinetic cannons locked forward. The design was primitive compared to the elegant plasma weaponry used across the galaxy. Yet something about it felt far more lethal. A calm burst crackled through, the voice of Captain Mason again, steady as before. "Your civilians are to stay inside. Do not launch ships. We'll neutralize the threat." Relas finally found her voice. "You don't understand. That's Karvek's entire fleet. Hundreds of ships. You'll be slaughtered." There was a brief silence. Then Mason replied, "Understood." The channel cut without another word. The Zorathian refugees inside the outpost huddled together, muttering in terror. They had heard stories of primitive species on the galactic fringe, backwater worlds with crude weapons and chaotic politics. These humans, whoever they were, looked nothing like that image. They moved like predators that had spent millennia perfecting the art of survival. Another ship broke formation to deploy small strike craft. Unlike typical fighters, these were compact, armored, built for brutal close-quarters combat. Their design was ugly but purposeful, machines forged for war by a species that clearly expected no mercy. Jiren leaned closer to Relas. Why are they here? They don't even know us. Relas didn't know either. Most species offer help for profit, glory, or conquest. Yet these humans had appeared from nowhere, answering a call meant for someone else, and now stood between Kareth and certain extinction without hesitation. The outpost sensors pinged. The warlord's fleet had arrived, blotting out half the screen with its sheer size. Cruisers, frigates, and carriers formed a wall of destruction, weapons already charging. Across the comms, galactic observers laughed. Messages streamed in from distant factions. Asterisk, the Terrans will die first. Then you, asterisk. Relas gritted her teeth, heart pounding. The humans did not respond to any of the taunts. Their ships held position, utterly silent, weapons primed. Not a trace of fear or desperation. It was in that moment Relas realized what made them so terrifying. These weren't soldiers fighting out of duty. These were predators who had seen war too many times, and they were about to prove that they were born for it. The first shot came from the Terran flagship, a single tungsten slug fired at a fraction of light speed. It tore through the leading Zorth cruiser like paper, splitting the ship apart in a silent bloom of fire and debris. Before the enemy fleet could react, the Terran struck again, coordinated salvos of kinetic rounds and railgun fire, each hit crippling a warship with brutal precision. The Zorth commander barked orders, scrambling his fleet into formation, but the humans didn't fight like anyone Relas had ever seen. They didn't trade broadsides or posture for dominance. They hunted. Strike craft swarmed forward in tight packs, weaving through plasma fire, unleashing missiles that tore engines apart and left ships dead in the void. Boarding pods launched from Terran frigates, slamming into enemy hulls with magnetic clamps. Seconds later, life sign readings spiked as human marines flooded the captured ships. Within minutes, entire enemy vessels went dark, their crews eliminated or captured without a single distress signal escaping. Relas gripped the console as the battle unfolded with terrifying speed. "They're not just winning," she whispered. "They're dismantling him." Jiren stared wide-eyed. "How are they doing this? No one fights like this." On the main display, a Terran destroyer deliberately rammed an enemy carrier, tearing open its hangar before detonating a shaped charge inside. The resulting blast gutted the ship in seconds. Every tactic the humans used was considered barbaric by galactic standards: boarding actions, ramming, precision, sabotage, but it was horrifyingly effective. The Zorth fleet began to falter. Ships tried to retreat, but human vessels pursued without mercy, their weapons ripping through fleeing targets one by one. The Terrans weren't just winning. They were erasing the enemy piece by piece, like predators finishing a hunt. Karvek's command ship attempted to flee, engines burning at full power. Mason's voice came over the comms, cold and unflinching. Target locked. Fire. A single railgun slug ripped through the warlord's flagship, bisecting it in a spray of molten fragments. The warlord's final transmission was a garbled scream before his vessel split apart and went silent forever. The battlefield was quiet again within minutes. Hundreds of Zorth ships reduced to wreckage drifting in the void. The Terran fleet reformed as though nothing had happened, calm and disciplined, not a trace of triumph or gloating. Relas felt her knees weaken. It hadn't been a battle. It had been an execution, swift and absolute. And the worst part, the humans had made it look easy. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. The wreckage of Karvek's fleet drifted lifelessly, illuminated only by the cold glow of distant stars. Relas stared at the tactical screen, struggling to breathe. The Terran ships moved back into a perfect defensive line, weapons still armed but no longer firing. There was no celebration, no cheers, only the same quiet precision that had defined their every move. A comm pinged. "Kareth outpost. This is Captain Mason," the voice said, steady and detached. "Your attackers have been neutralized. Casualty count is 0 on our side. You're safe now." Relas swallowed hard. I don't know how to thank you. We have nothing to give." "You don't owe us anything," Mason replied. "We heard a call for help. We answered. That's all." The channel closed before she could respond. The Terran fleet didn't linger. They began recovering their boarding pods, towing captured ships, and collecting survivors. Enemy survivors. Even after annihilating the fleet, they hadn't killed indiscriminately. The humans fought with ruthless efficiency, but not cruelty. Jiren stared at the screen, voice trembling. They just saved us. For nothing. Who does that? Word of the battle spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, factions that laughed at the Terrans now whispered in fear. Footage of the fight was replayed endlessly. Ships built for war, tactics no one had dared use for centuries, and the terrifying reality that this primitive species had just annihilated a warlord's fleet in minutes. Relas couldn't shake the image of Mason's voice, calm and unshaken. These weren't warriors seeking glory or conquest. They were something far older, far more dangerous. Predators who didn't fight wars for pride but to end them decisively and permanently. As the Terran fleet slipped back into FTL, leaving only silence behind, Relas knew one thing for certain. No one would ever send a blind distress call again without thinking of the humans who had answered this one. Because now, the galaxy understood a truth that chilled every world to its core. When humans come to help, they do not come as diplomats. They come as the last thing you'll ever see if you're the one who started the fight.